China continues to grow. Secretary of State Pompeo says there is significant evidence that the virus came from that Chinese lab in Wuhan. Our next guest says this struggle with China means a problem for Joe Biden's candidacy. Steve Cortes is with us, America First spokesman. What's the connection here? Lay out your case, Biden and China.
Sure. I will, Stuart. And first of all, amidst this crisis, it's very evident that the American people now see with very clear eyes the threat that the Chinese Communist Party is to the health, economic vitality, and national security of the United States. In a recent poll by The Economist, only 3% of Americans identify the Beijing regime as an ally. Now, to tie it into Joe Biden, unfortunately for our country, Joe Biden, as a senator, as vice president, all the way until the present day, he has been a complicit and coddling appeaser of the Chinese Communist Party for decades. Most recently, I'll give you two examples, Stuart. Most recently, in late January, when President Trump protected our homeland, he very presciently restricted travel here from China. The response of Joe Biden was to call that, quote, hysterical xenophobia. Also during this presidential campaign, during the Democratic primary at an appearance in Iowa, when he was asked about the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party, he said, quote, they're not bad folks. So both on the policy side, but then also on the personal side, Joe Biden is completely compromised and vulnerable on this issue of China. And on the personal side, I'm talking, of course, about Hunter Biden. And when we look at the corruption of the private equity deal that Joe Biden facilitated for his son Hunter while he was sitting vice president, I think, Stuart, it frankly makes what went on in the Ukraine with Burisma, as bad as that was, it makes that look like child's play compared to the level of corruption when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party and the Biden family.
Well, Steve, you've laid out your case against Joe Biden and his problems with various issues. I think Democrats are aware of these problems. So my question to you, maybe coming out of left center field here, but do you think Joe Biden will ultimately be the candidate, or will they drop him before?
Well, that's a $64,000 question, isn't it, right now? Here's what I really believe, and this is just my intuition. I don't have sources, as you might guess, within the Democratic Party, within the DNC, but it sure seems to me that they are desperately trying to come up with scenarios where they can replace him, largely exactly for this weakness that I'm talking about. As China becomes, in many ways, the primary issue of this election, I think in many ways the November vote is going to be a referendum on America's relationship with China, and the American people are going to decide, do we want to re-elect President Trump, who has been tough on China and has been warning our country about the threats of China since even before he got into politics, or do we want to hand the reins of power over to someone that I call Beijing Biden, because that is unfortunately an appropriate moniker for a globalist like Joe Biden. So I think the Democrats realize that they have a significant problem there, and they are trying to concoct ways in which he can be replaced. But look, for now, he is the presumptive Democratic nominee, and I'm going to focus on that. And again, Stuart, I really can't overstate, I would say, implore Americans out there right now, if you've lost a job, if you're worried about losing a job, if you're sick, China did this to you. China did this to you, and Beijing Biden will only make things worse.
All right, I'll put you down as a skeptic on the Biden candidacy. Steve Cortes, thank you very much indeed. Total change of subject, but this is interesting.